All right. Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome out. This is Ankit from Maverick Currencies here, and let's begin our market coverage. It's a Monday, July the 25th. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the market price action today, talk about how things develop today, and then what we can expect in the next 24 to 48 hours in the markets, and we'll make sure that we are staying in the right side of the market. So let's do a quick market analysis and take a look at the price action today. So the price action today was very uneventful. If you take a look at the charts across the board, there was some sort of consolidation that took place. There was not a whole lot of conviction in any of the movements here. So at this point, the S&P 500 still staying above this downward trend line. It's making a consolidation over here. We got a sell-off on Friday, but you can see that there was not a whole lot of follow-through to Friday's sell-off. So we are just staying in the sideways range. And remember, as long as we stay above this range, market's still likely to consolidate to go higher. If you can give up this range here, I think then we can fall back into the downward trend line here. So I think at this point, we are pretty much at the crossroad of where market wants to go. Same thing we're noticing in the World Stock Index. We can see that the markets are lagging a little bit, but overall is still staying right at the nick of that downward trend line here. So not a extreme bullishness or bearishness that we are seeing in the World Stock Index either. So let's take a look at crypto world. And in the crypto world, you can see after breaking out last week, we actually have just pulled back and consolidated gains here. So if you just take a look at the levels over here, we are back to the prior support or prior resistance, which now becomes a support. So we have actually retesting that level here. So this is an important testing point for cryptos. If it falls back below it, then we are actually back in the range. If it wants to rally higher, it actually wants to stay here and maybe make it run higher from here. So a bit of a do and die situation for the cryptos out there. So overall, this was percentage wise, this was not a big day today. I mean, we have seen a small little pullback in cryptos, about 2.30%. But outside of that, the equity markets were not the biggest mover. The gold was a pullback, 0.5%. Oil, as usual, moving up 2% up and down. So it's still the oil outlook still kind of looks murky here, but it has the volatility where it does go back and forth with a decent percentage size. So the equity market's mostly range bound. And if we take a look at the currency market, we have the Aussie and the CAD that rallied while the yen and the Swiss franc pulls back. So we'll dive deep into the currency price action here, but let's take a look at market outlook. So market outlook remains a +1. Like I said before, we are not in the downtrend anymore, as we had seen this downtrend line playing out since April. But we are in this crossroads where things can go either way. We have the biggest cliffhanger is Wednesday when we get the FOMC rate decision. Again, expectation is about 75 basis points. Again, it will be a big surprise if they do come with 1%. Right now, the expectation for 1% rate hike is actually very low. So it's about 24 percentile range. So probably by Wednesday, we'll have things clear out, and hopefully we'll get a nice little price action right after that. So until then, we'll probably have to just stick with what's in front of us and maybe expect for smaller percentage moves until that happens. And again, if we look at price action tomorrow or any news events tomorrow, we have the consumer confidence, which I don't think is going to be a big mover. Perhaps we can see some movements from the CPI figures tomorrow, but I'm actually staying quite on the sideline here until we get better price action in this currency market. So let's do a quick currency analysis. Let's see how things are moving and pay attention to some of the percentage change. So you can see in the crypto world, it was a straight down across the board. So Bitcoin Cash down 6.5%. The Ethereum was actually down 5%. So that was been the outperformer, has the biggest rally. I mean, has been up quite nicely in the past couple of weeks. So you're seeing a bit of a pullback there. Bitcoin is down 2%. So overall, you can see there's just a pullback that's just taking place after the breakout that happened. So follow through is important. The pullbacks can go deeper, and they can actually fall back into the range. So follow through is key here to mark an actual bottom or reversal. Now, if the currency world, it was a bit of an upside, the opposite day of what we saw on a Friday. So on a Friday, we had the Swiss franc was actually strong, and we had the yen actually strong. They both pull back. We actually had CAD was the weakest currency, and that actually rallied. So you can see it was a bit of a back and forth. The Aussie actually staying resilient overall, but Kiwi again staying underperformer. And if you look at the divergence between Aussie and Kiwi, you can see Aussie still lagging there. So if you're trying to decide between Aussie and Kiwi, pay attention to the Aussie-Kiwi pairing, because there is that divergence between those two currency pairs. I was surprised with some of the pound upbeat move today, 0.34%, but overall we still remains in a downtrend. So even though if we get a positive velocity, overall I'm not really too hopeful about the pound outlook there. Now, lastly, the euro, which again was not a big mover. After disappointing PMI figures, we had the ECB rate hike last week. I mean, we're not really seeing any sort of a big price action that's translating into the euro here. So just gotta watch the euro, but so far pretty sideways, pretty much flat since the rate hike that's taken place. So let's take a look at velocity scores. So we understand where the trends are, as we discussed in our currency room. As far as the velocity goes, you can see the velocity is in the Aussie and the CAD and the Swiss franc and the yen. The question is, what kind of follow through can we expect, or is there sort of follow through? Because what we are seeing is just a reversal of the move from Friday. So I think the market still seeks direction. I mean, we'll take a look at charts here. I mean, Aussie and CAD are still trading nicely. So if you want to just stick with the trend, today's move really was along with the trend, which on Friday, the moves were really opposite the trend. So, I mean, the currency, the velocity so far is lining up with the trend score. And I think the Swiss franc is the only odd one over there. Swiss franc we had as a +2, which actually turned out to be -2. So I'm not sure which way Swiss franc wants to go. But yen overall still remains in a downtrend and actually did pull back a little bit today. So we'll spend a little bit more time on the charts, and then we have the dollar, which remains an underperformer, which is a surprise to me, because now we have the FOMC rate decision that's due on Wednesday. Usually we see the dollar actually run up into the news event, but so far dollar doesn't seem to be catching the bit here. So something to pay close attention to. So let's do a quick rundown with possible trades and see what exactly that we like here on a technical basis, or seeing where the big opportunity would be in the next 24 to 48 hours. So let's just start with with a quick analysis here, starting with some of the yen crosses here, because I think that's where a lot of the questions were. I mean, if you take a look at yen overall, this thing has been going sideways, but the last week where we got that big rally was what's really caught traders off guard. And usually when you are trading with the trend and you get a counter trend move, you have to just understand if there's any sort of follow through to it. If there's an opposite move, this is a time to not be trying to trade the same direction, maybe to take a pause here. So at this point, we have a nice bottom that's in place. This is a range bound price action. And so far with that rally here, we actually did correct. We didn't really give back all the gains from Friday, but we made a nice little correction here. So the question is this ready to break lower, or is it ready to break higher? I think you probably have to decide upon a breakout. I mean, at this point, we have this support and resistance, but I'm not really 100% convicted, have the conviction that it can go actually higher or lower. I think what we can expect is what we have seen in the past month or so, where we've seen a rally, pullbacks, rallies, and pullbacks. I mean, this price action kind of reminds me of what we saw back in June. Remember June, where we touched that level? We had 2-day rally, which looks very similar over here. We did had a big candle like that. We actually went down for 3 days, and then we picked up. So the question is, can we repeat the same pattern, or are we expecting another positive candle tomorrow? Something to pay attention to in later this week. I think the yen, the way you want to look at it, I mean, you want to trade this as a sideways rather than as a super directional, like the way it was over here, until it really breaks towards that bottom line. So that's where we are at the yen. But now dollar, again, dollar is the one that actually been on the pullback side. You can see that we have seen a nice little hefty pullback here. RSI actually pulling back a little bit. So the question is the dollar trade done? And again, if you remember back in May, we actually got this little pullback, which lasted for about 3 weeks. And that where we actually got lower high with a lower low. And that's when you know that you got to stay not go for the long dollar, but probably opposite, where you probably look at the opposite of those trades. So I mean, right now we're seeing a very similar kind of price action. The one thing is that probably holding us back here is the FOMC rate decision that's due on Wednesday. And usually we get some volatility around it, but I think beyond that, if you can get some rally off of that and then actually pull back, I think that'll create a great setup for further downside in the dollar crosses. So maybe look for a little initial price action to the upside to actually sell into it further. But this is a news trade, so we'll have to kind of wait and see how this thing will pan out. The Swiss franc was a surprise today with the pullback overall. I mean, we talk about Swiss franc has been, overall holding and staying positive. At this point, it's still above the 20 and the 52 moving average, so I still expect the pullbacks to be short-lived. I mean, if you look at the pullbacks previously, I mean, we only had 1, 2, and third the negative candle, but then usually that results with a positive candle. So be aware of the Swiss franc doesn't look as weak to me, but if you can break below this, try to break below the support, then that's when we want to be short the Swiss franc. But let's talk about the other movements that we had seen today. Was the CAD, which again was caught a lot of traders by surprise. Again, I was actually kind of wary of the CAD as well, because CAD has been in an uptrend, and as you can see that the CAD pulled back very nicely yesterday. Or on Friday, now with the big of a complete reversal of that move, we are still below that breakout point. So 4-hour chart still points me to the upside on this CAD here. But if you're looking for CAD to make a lower high and a lower low, then you need to see these rallies fail. I mean, we haven't had good examples of rally being failing as much because we have been on an uptrend. But I mean, this will be a great indication. If this is a trend change, we made a lower low with a lower high, then make a lower low. But for now, I mean, today's price action was pretty strong. I have to kind of wait and see for that confirmation. Maybe reject this area. If we get some rejection around here, I think we can expect a little further pullback over here. Now, looking at what's performing well. Well, Aussie has actually turned its corner here. You can see it was in a downtrend, and now it's slowly turning into an uptrend. This is still very sideways to moving higher price action. This is not as bullish as you would want it to be, because in between there's a lot of these pullbacks. You can see there's a big pullback that happened on a Friday. Now we just made a reversal back to the highs there. I mean, if you look at the price action, direction seems to be on the upside, but in between, lots of pullbacks. So be aware of that. Maybe those pullbacks just are a good opportunity to buy into. Now, Kiwi, which has been the lagging one, I mean, this thing has not really given us a great opportunity. And I mean, if you take a look at Aussie Kiwi, I think Aussie Kiwi is really setting up for a breakout. This thing has, I've actually looked at this for the longest time. Usually it hovers around this level and then actually pulls back. This is a very important level of resistance. And as you can see this time, it's just staying above it. So at this point, I'd rather play this on a further breakout above the 111.50 area. Until then, I think we want to just stay cautious. There's not a whole lot of range until we hit that level, but if we can break that level, we can actually get a nice little breakout on the Aussie Kiwi, which I would actually like to play out, because so far we had this 2 months of consolidation between that 109.50 to 110.07. That's a very tight range, and eventually I think I'd like to see a breakout, especially on a weekly chart as well. You can see that this price action looks bullish to me. So as far as the other trade goes, if you take a look at Aussie dollar and Aussie, let's actually go back here. Aussie dollar has been actually trading or rallying a bit here. I talk about this technical setup in the currency room. We actually broken down. This is a very strong level of support, that 70 level. You can see that there's been many times where it has been able to just rally off of that. Now this time around, it actually stayed below it for a little while, had a nice rally. We made a case that this could be a bear rally setting up, but we need to reject this level. We got a nice rejection on a Friday, but today's price action got us right back to the level here. So at this point, watch out for the 69.85 area. If you can get above it, I think we are now back in the upper end of the range, because then that way we'll have a complete reversal of this big support level that has been in place for almost 2 years. So I mean, at this point, we need a breakout for confirmation. If you're looking for a reversal, we need a rejection, just like what we saw on a Friday. I mean, unfortunately, we didn't get any follow through, but for that to materialize, we need this to pull back a little bit here. I had a lot of questions about EURUSD as well, so let's go take a look at EURUSD. I know EURUSD after this little bear rally, this thing has just gone sideways. So I think on Wednesday when we had the FOMC rate decision, I think this is going to be a bigger mover, either one way or the other, on the upside or to the downside. It's sitting still in a bear rally formation for me, so I still like it on a further break, but we need to break this 101.85 area for this to continue, then test that parity level. But outside of that, I mean, there's not a whole lot. I mean, Euro Aussie, perhaps Euro Aussie, I like it on the downside. If you look at the Euro short, I mean, this thing has now broken the support at 147.79. I mean, this thing can easily get towards that 143.89 area. So I do like Euro Aussie to further downside. Now, if you take a look at let's see, Pound Aussie. I mean, Pound Aussie is following a very similar pattern. Let's take a look at Aussie Swiss franc. So you can see that the Aussie is trying to make a bit of a turn over here. So despite of what's going on with the markets, the Aussie seems to be a little bit more resilient here. So be cautious with the Aussie here. You know, all the pullback seems to be very short-lived. So I think those will be great about buying opportunities. Even if you pay attention to Aussie and take a look at Aussie against the CAD, I mean, you can see that there is a turning around that happening. Remember, CAD is actually being the strongest currency. If the Aussie can make a turn and get above this level, that 89.38, like let's say get above that 89.50, I think this is where it has a bigger potential for making a bit of a run. So the question is the CAD really done here? I mean, at this point, I'm seeing a turn happening in Aussie CAD. Let's see if there's any turns happening in any other currency pairs like Kiwi CAD. Not so much there. So maybe just the Aussie CAD that's showing that little outperformance there. Let's see how the Euro CAD is doing. I mean, Euro CAD is consolidating here. So you can see it's not a broader move. I mean, could be just isolated with a lot of these the Aussie pairs that are looking to break out. But outside of that, I'm not really seeing bigger moves any of the other currencies. I mean, let's take a look at Aussie Yen as well. And I think with the yen crosses, you got to be careful because we have some clear defined resistance in place. And some of the currencies, I mean, like Aussie yen, it has a nice resistance at about 96. So if you can break above that, I'll definitely like to play this on a further upside. But look at the weekly chart. There's a lot of congestion around this area. Now, other areas, other currency pairs like Swiss franc yen, I mean, we haven't really established a higher high. I mean, we kind of double tested or double top here, make a lower high over here. So at this point, it's unclear if the yen is also weakening across the board, with just going sideways for a little bit here. Now the dollar yen as well, which a nice little healthy pullback. We got another nice little rally here. And if you look back in time, each time it pulled back, it was able to rally. 2 days of pullback, a rally. 2 days of pullback, and a rally. So this really fits in the theme of what we have seen so far. But for this to really turn around, I think I need to get more clarity on what the dollar is doing, which again on Wednesday we'll have a better idea. So until then, I think I'd like to be on hold. If you're looking at any crosses, I think Aussie seems to be the right play, depending on what you want to pair with. But even Aussie, as I've said before, is a bit of a tricky one because it would pull back when you think it wants to rally, and then it will reverse. So the path is onto the upside with lots of little pullbacks in between that you need to be careful about. Even same thing yesterday, you noticed that last night the markets opened up and we actually did move lower before we moved higher. So at this point, it looks like buying the dips is a better opportunity than buying the breakouts. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. But that's the outlook for the next 24 hours. Again, not every week is a busy week with price action. Sometimes you get this consolidation. So maybe what we are seeing is a bit of that quiet period before we get some volatility later on this week. So keep an eye on Wednesday. Keep the powder dry. If something is giving you opportunities, it's great. But if it's not, just wait for the right opportunity to come along. Thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy your rest of the evening. We'll see you in the next update.